and gentlemen, my name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and we have finally started The Walking Dead Season 10. Season 10, Episode 1 was just about an hour and a half long. It was a pretty long episode. And, I gotta say, I feel like that for an episode that long, it really didn't go anywhere. It really did not. I liked it, I did not love it. And so, you kind of start out with Oceanside and their training. And they're using zombies on the beach to train and, make sure everybody knows how to fight. And essentially that's supposed to be like everybody preparing just in case they have to deal with the Whispers again. And so after that, you have a small conversation with Daryl and Michonne where he talks about, I know somebody who would have loved to have seen that, talking about Rick. And then they kind of move over to Judith. She's with a couple other kids on the beach, and she finds a cut-off zombie face in some seashells and stuff washed up on the shore. And that's where they cut to credits. They come back, and there's a pretty big moment there with Aaron and Michonne, where Aaron's just kind of losing his cool and doing stupid shit, thinking maybe that some of these walkers are Whisperers, and puts himself in jeopardy. Michonne starts going off on him, and they start talking about how Aaron's really pissed off that they're just waiting around and they're not doing anything about the Whisperers. And Michonne, she agrees with him, but says that he has to use his head. She's pissed off too, but you have to use your brain in this kind of situation is basically what it comes down to. So it was kind of a cool conversation that they had there. And it wound up actually being two conversations back to back that they showed in this episode. And so it really built up how pissed off Aaron is about everything. Another thing I liked about kind of the beginning of the show is they're all working on the beach. And Connie's talking to the young boy that's with her, the guy that helps translate her, and apparently there's something going on with him. I don't remember his name as the character, sorry. But, he was asking, who's going to help Connie out, because she's the deaf one. And she's like, it's not a disability, it's my superpower. So that was kind of a cute moment there. There was a couple of conversations that were okay, we're reintroducing the characters this season. Ezekiel talking to Daryl, and Carol shows up on a boat, and apparently she's been gone ever since the big events of last season. And so her and Daryl are catching up, and you can see the camaraderie there and how they're talking about just leaving everything and everybody behind and go doing their own thing. Daryl and Carol have had this unique relationship the entire time, and so it really seems like they're just let's just be about ourselves and not worry about all this other mess. And the way they filmed this episode in particular is they would shoot at Oceanside up into the point of the satellite crashing through the atmosphere, and then they would shoot at Alexandria until the point where the satellite comes crashing through the atmosphere. And so it was a little jarring at first. They really didn't think that one out, I think. I mean, it all leads up to this one penultimate moment that's really not a penultimate moment. Because what eventually happens is they see this debris, it's coming down through the atmosphere, it crashes in the forest. There's a fire that starts, because the metal's hot and it's on fire. So you see a lot of the people talking about, we're not supposed to go into this territory because it's past the barrier that the Whisperers had set up. So they're going into Whisperer territory to put this fire out. But they're like, we have to do it. So they all, chip in, trying to put this fire out. They finally accomplished that. They got attacked by a herd of walkers. And even Eugene was like, I should inspect this to see what kind of tech we could take back that might help us. And so all of that goes off without a hitch, and then you see Daryl and Carol on a peak overlooking this big like valley, and they're still talking about, you know, whether they want to just leave or not. And Daryl says, you know, just stick around. So Daryl kind of walks away, and then you're just left with Carol looking down from this peak, and then you see Alpha walk out, look up, and then Carol and Alpha lock eyes, and that's where they cut the episode. And so for an hour and a half, really not a lot happened. And really, the whole buildup of this moment was Carol and Alpha locking eyes. Not really a big moment, if I'm being honest. I mean, part of my problem with last season, while a lot of people really liked what happened at the end, I didn't. Because I felt like they were afraid to take certain creative risks. I just felt like they were like, you know what? This is stuff we don't want to do because we don't want to lose these main actors. There weren't a lot of big deaths. I mean, you had the Big 10 at the end, but they weren't really the Big 10. They were like the Big 2. You know, they were like 2 characters that anybody gave a shit about, like, honestly. So, for me, while I did enjoy the episode, I thought they could have done a lot more to catch people's attention. I've always said that when you're just coming back into a season for anything, you need to grab people's attention. Like, you really want something that's like, this is what you want to wait and see what happens next week. And they didn't do that. I'm sorry, Carol and Alpha looking at each other from across a ravine or a valley, we already know that's coming. Like, we already know. So this really does nothing. It doesn't set a stage for anything. There's no build-up. The build-up was last season. So I just feel like they've been going way too safe with this series. And that's disappointing because this series has been built on shock value, really catching people off guard, not knowing who's going to make it or not. And one thing I wish they would really fucking quit doing is announcing when characters are leaving the show. I really hate that. Because, like, we knew Rick Grimes was leaving last season. That would have been a major shock if everybody would have just kept their mouth shut. Same thing with Denai Guerrera this time. We know she's leaving. It would have been a much bigger surprise if everybody would have just kept their fucking mouth shut. You're taking the surprise element away from the show. So it really does bother me that they do that. So, I don't know, dude. Like, grading this out of 10, it wasn't that big an episode for me. There wasn't a lot of standout. They had a couple of cool moments in, but for an hour and a half, it just didn't work for me. I think, honestly, the biggest 2 moments were the training day at the beginning in Oceanside when they were fighting these, like, zombies that were, like, all waterlogged and shit. And the other big part was Negan talking to Gabriel. And, you know, he's saying everybody's putting their shitting pants back on because of the Whisperers, and he doesn't want to be tied in with them. He doesn't want to be seen as the threat again, so he just went back to his cell to hide away from everybody for now, because, you know, out of sight is out of mind. So those were the highlights, and I feel like they just could have done a lot more with this. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10, because I felt like it was way too safe. Not just too safe, but way too safe. I feel like they didn't open with anything that was, you know, I have to see this next week. It just continued on in a much less impactful fashion from last season. So that's where I'm at. Sorry. I know people are going to disagree, and that's fine. That's why we have opinions, man. Everybody is unique in their own way. My opinion is that they did not do nearly enough. Take it for what it's worth. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz, Kaged Nation, out.